Most people think getting sponsored is about being good enough. I believe that too, and it almost cost me everything. This is the story of how I learned what actually matters if you want to get paid to do what you love. And once you hear it, you'll never chase sponsorship the same way again. First, it's important to understand that motorsports and extreme sports, it wasn't a phase for me, and it wasn't something that I picked up later in my life. And snowmobiling was in my DNA before I was even born. In 1967, my grandpa actually brought the first Polaris snowmobiles into Western Canada, which is a small town in 100 Mile House, BC. That's where I grew up until I was about 7 years old. And when I was about 5, my parents got my brother and I our first snowmobile. And I still remember ripping around behind our house because we had a power line out back. It was hard to get me off that thing. I fell in love with two-stroke engines, the sound, the smell, the crack when you hit the power band, all of it. And we call it our throttle therapy. It's that thing that makes us feel alive. And, it clears our mind to where nothing matters except what you're doing in that moment. It wasn't long before riding turned into racing, and racing turned into my whole identity. And here's why that matters. My parents did something that looked like support at the time, but it was way more strategic than I actually understood. And years later, it ended up being the exact lesson that made everything click for me. We started racing young, my brother and I. The first race I remember was an ice oval race where we just were ripping around in a circle. And from that moment on, I was hooked. And from there, snowcross became the main focus. And I got into motocross too, because it was great cross training in the summer. The real thing that pulled me in, it wasn't just the competition. It was the people. It was, we raced in BC, and our circuit was called BCSF, which stands for the British Columbia Snowmobile Federation. The people you race with every weekend, they become like your tribe. You're not just showing up to race, you're showing up to be around your race family. When my parents saw just how deep this went for me and my brother, they got creative in a way that most families never could or would. And my dad at the time, he decided to get creative, and he got loans and found enough startup capital to buy a Polaris dealership that was about an hour from where we lived in Williams Lake, BC. Over the next few years, we moved the whole family there to build it. And at the time, I thought that I knew why, because obviously racing is expensive. So the obvious benefit was dealer cost on, sleds, parts, discounted gear, and just making it more affordable to compete. That wasn't the real leverage. There was another layer to it that I didn't fully understand until way later. And that layer is what connects everything in this story together. We were racing hard, the wins started stacking, and sponsorship started looking real. I mean, I have a box of all of these plaques that I tore off all the trophies from over the years that we didn't have, so we didn't have to pay for storage just to keep all the hardware, and we just kept all, the most memorable ones. As the business grew, we started doing really well as racers. We were winning, we were making a name, and we started getting support from Polaris. That first real support, it feels like the dream is happening. We're on the path now. Now we just got to keep winning, and it'll just continue to naturally start leveling up. Here's where it gets frustrating. We had the support, but it wasn't the support we were chasing. Don't get me wrong, we were getting race sleds and factory gear at cost, which is huge. It wasn't the full factory deal that we were after. We didn't have no real budget. There was no real commitment. It was just enough to keep you in the game, but just not enough to really, change your life. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, we just need to win more. We just need to prove it more. That's when our rep with Polaris told us something that honestly pissed me off. It sounded completely backwards. He tells us, you need to go race in the United States. I'm thinking why would we do that? We're dominating in Western Canada. So in my head, it just didn't make sense. Eventually we listened And we went, and what happened after that trip is the moment that proved the thing that I thought sponsors cared about most wasn't the thing that actually mattered. We went to Wenatchee, Washington, and we went there and we cleaned up, like dominated, and we proved what we thought we needed to prove. You'd think that that's where the story becomes, like we showed up, we won, and then just the doors opened. The real lesson, it wasn't the wins. The real lesson was what changed around us the moment that we were racing in front of a different crowd. We were in a different market with way more eyes on the sport. That's when it started to click that what matters to sponsors isn't actually what athletes think it is. And right when I'm starting to understand that, life hits me with one of the hardest lessons of all. It was the cup race at the end of the weekend. I blew the shock in my sled that turned it literally into like a pogo stick. Every jump was a complete gamble. I was trying to stay on and just finish the race, and I ended up getting bucked off of my sled. And there was another rider coming up the hill. I don't want to accuse him, but I'm pretty sure that he aimed for me. And he hit me with the sled. He ran me over. He hit me right in the chest, dragged me underneath the sled, and I couldn't breathe. They hauled me down because it was on a ski hill. They got me into a medevac. They put me into this helicopter, and then they flew me to Seattle Trauma Hospital. And I remember being in this chopper, struggling to breathe. I'm in pain. And the medic looks at me and she asks, "Have you ever had morphine before?" And I have. So I said, yes. And she injected it. And as soon as she does this, the other medic goes, "How much did you just give him? Do you realize that he's only about 140 pounds? And that's the last thing that I heard. I just remember it felt like a warm, lead, heavy blanket that just went over my body, and I was gone. And I remember coming to slightly with the medic, and she's holding my eyes open with a flashlight, and she's slapping me, and she's telling me, like, "Stay awake, look at me. Look at me. Don't close your eyes. I'm right here." They transferred me from the heli into an ambulance straight into the ICU in Seattle Trauma Hospital. And after a week there with ruptured spleen, ruptured pancreas, kidney, broken rib cage, collarbone, and who knows what else. It wasn't not long after that, my brother, he shatters 6 inches of his femur at a race, and they almost amputated his leg. Imagine being my parents. 2 sons, back to back, both of them almost gone. They made a decision, and it was, "We love you guys. We want you to be alive." The racing, it stopped, and they decided to sell the business. When racing is your identity, you don't just lose a sport, like you lose who you think you are. And that's when the real trap started, because I kept trying to get back into the old plan instead of realizing the plan itself was wrong. So for the next 12 years, I tried to work my way back. So in my head, I thought the only way I could ride for a living was if I was to be a pro again and got full factory support again. And that was the only path that I could see. I chased money to see if I could fund my racing. So I went into oil and gas because it was good money. The problem ended up being it was busiest time was in the winter when the ground was frozen, which I'm sure you agree is the best time to ride a snowmobile. That didn't solve the problem. And so then I became an electrician. I got my ticket really fast. I worked my way up. I became a foreman, and I was making great money again, thinking that I would have more flexibility with my time. Then I fell into the same trap because now work needed me. So here I am. I have the money. I had the toys in the garage, but I didn't have the time. This whole time, that itch, it never left. I just wanted to ride. Then came along my second rock bottom. And this one, it wasn't a physical one. It was just a deep emotional rock bottom. And it's September of 2016, and I'm in this basement suite that I'm renting for work in Merritt, BC, Canada. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. For years, I've been telling people that I was going to race again, acting like I was this pro athlete, carrying myself like it was all about to happen, and it still wasn't happening. That night, I realized I'd been living a lie, clinging to this identity instead of actually building a real plan. I collapsed on this old dusty couch, feeling like a complete fraud. I pulled my phone out. I started scrolling Facebook just to try to distract myself from this deep hole that I felt I was in. And then I came across this video. Some random dude talking all this bullshit about the laptop lifestyle and how he travels the world while he does advertising for companies as a freelancer, and how it's because he understands this skill set of digital marketing. At this time, I could care less about traveling, which is what he was advertising his lifestyle around, but I seen it as like this, hey, like, what if I could build something that revolves around my love for snowmobiling and make my sport the center of what I build my career around? And that's when I just had this download moment where everything just started to connect. And it brought me all the way back to when my parents bought that Polaris dealership and why they bought it in the first place. It finally clicked that my parents didn't just buy the dealership for cheaper parts and equipment. That's the obvious benefit, right? But the real leverage was the marketing angle. Everything we raced was covered in shop decals, the sleds, the trailers, the vehicles, the dirt bikes, all of it. And we were literally rolling billboards. Like, racing wasn't just a passion, it was the marketing. And that meant it could be treated like marketing. It created tax advantages, it created exposure, it created attention for the business. It made the whole lifestyle more sustainable. And then I connected the moment of racing in the United States. We went down there to prove that we were better. What actually mattered was that we were racing in front of a bigger audience. That was the real needle mover. I'm sitting here thinking, like, if that's the lever, why am I trying to pull the hardest way possible through just racing only? Like, what if I could build that lever on purpose and leverage social media as the platform? There's no limit to the amount of people that you can get in front of. You can build an audience of people online no matter where you live, no matter what race series you're a part of. I mean, heck, even if you're in the backcountry where there's nobody but you and a few friends that exist for hundreds of miles. That's where this new plan was born. At that moment, I decided to build a business around marketing through social media and build the audience companies wanted to get in front of. I took every dollar I had and I invested it into mentors and programs so I could learn the ropes of all of this stuff. I went deep into advertising, to branding, copywriting, what an offer is, sales funnels, audience building, all of it. I traveled around the world to rub shoulders with the best online marketers I could find. I was simply obsessed with just figuring this out. And within 1 year, I became one of the top affiliate marketers for an online educational company that teaches these skill sets. That was the big turning point for me. It proved marketing mattered more than talent. And then as the next 4 years went by, I realized something that I didn't expect. What I missed most wasn't even the racing. It was actually the people. I missed my race family. I missed being around other motorheads. I missed, being around people who just get it, I had this idea to build basically a house party, but do it online. And it's a place for motorsports fanatics, for action sports athletes, like people that are wired like us. That's what actually became the Action Sports Club in 2020. It started as a simple Facebook group, and then it grew into what it is today. And today, we've privately coached hundreds of athletes to build powerful brands around their sport, grow their sponsorship programs, and cash flow with these brands. Even some of them quit their 9-to-5 jobs and go all in with their sport. We've helped thousands through our guides, our mini courses, and our community, getting them to land their first deals and build brands that pay them simply for posting content. And the coolest part is it's watching athletes flip the script because they realize they don't have to wait to be chosen anymore. You create value, you gain leverage, and you get paid without needing to be a pro. When more athletes do that, the whole industry wins because it means more eyes, meaning more fans, more money, bigger events, bigger facilities, and even more opportunity for everyone. My vision here, long term, I'm building the Action Sports Club into a movement. And eventually, I want to build a physical home for it called the Action Sports Ranch, where we can design out a full facility where we can all come out, host events, do badass things, and create content to share the stoke for the sports that we all love. Here's the lesson that I wish I understood when I was a kid ripping behind the house under those power lines. If you want to get paid to do what you love, you've got to understand what actually moves the needle. Talent matters, but it's not the lever. If it was, then the best athletes would always get paid and the average ones wouldn't. And that's just simply not how it works. And once you understand that that lever is realizing sponsorship is just simply marketing for a company and it's all about the attention that is on you, you stop chasing sponsorship like it's a reward. You start building it like it's a business relationship. That's my story. And the reason that I'm telling you this is not just so you know who I am. It's also because I don't want you making the same mistakes that I did. My mission is to grow our sports by helping grassroots athletes build real attention around what they do, because the athletes are the backbone of this industry. And when you learn how to build an audience and tell your story, sponsors stop feeling like luck and they start becoming a real business relationship. If you're trying to get sponsored, grow your audience, and get paid to do what you love, I put the whole playbook into my guide. It's called The Modern Playbook for Sponsorship and Cash Flow. You can grab it on Amazon, and I'll show you how to build leverage that sponsors actually care about. Thanks for listening to my story, and I hope it inspired you and helped you in some way. And stay deadly, and I'll see you next time. Peace.